Well, good morning there, everyone. Today is December 10th, 2022, and today is another day wherein I and none of you out there in here that's visiting us today deserves, predicated on God's righteous standards. But He has allowed us to live to behold this day, in contrast to our eligibility based on the things that we negate to do to please Him. And so I just like to spell this out, because most of us sometimes think that it's just ordinary, or it's just normal that we get up in the morning every morning, whereas others passed away that same morning, the night, and will eventually, some part of the world and in our nation here, will pass away today. We are just blessed and privileged for reasons best known to God, because if some of us look into ourselves, we can clearly see that there's nothing we've done to deserve such unmerited favor. So I'd like to acknowledge the Lord for that, and thank you, Father, for allowing me to be a part of the living. So today, I decided to make this video in honor of my life's partner, Miss Deborah Juah Walker, my wife and my queen, as I call her. You know, there's a lot I want to say here today, but I will not be able, because of time, and not to create boredom, even though if I do explain, or did explain, there will be no boredom. But we have time to leave this place and do other things with our lives before this weekend passes by. So I'll just be brief. My wife, Deborah Juah Walker, is the most exceptional human being, and not woman, but human being, I've ever encountered in my life. Next to my mother. You know, life deals with us in various capacities, and that creates various spectrums in our hearts about who we are, what we are, and the people we align ourselves with. And those things dictate the structure of our existence, and the structure of our futuristic pursuits. The people that come around us in our lives, they affect us positively and negatively. So it's incumbent upon us to really be sure and know that this person or these persons are the ones that going to maximize, the productivity of my life. For me, this person is Mrs. Walker, Deborah, my wife. I was 25 years old when I met my wife in 1994, and in towards the ending of it, and in a few weeks or a month or so, we were married, against the advice of a lot of folks, including my family and hers, who thought that it was too early. We didn't really know each other well, so how could we just be married? It's not going to thrive. And there was so much negativities, so but we went ahead and got married. And by God's grace, it's 28 years now. And we have not lost each other. We have not gotten wearied of each other. We have not gotten bored of each other. And we have not departed each other's life. Against all of the witches and ill notions of people. But my life was nothing and nowhere in Africa. For some of you here that are our friends from these United States, my life was void, empty, both, materially, physically, in every aspect. I was a struggling young man in Africa, and when my wife encountered me, or we encountered each other, my life began to take different stages. My wife was she was a boutique proprietor selling clothes, male clothes. Those days I didn't even have clothes. I never had underwears, boxers and stuff. She doesn't like to hear me talk this, but that's how open I am. I like to let the world know what my wife did in my life from that beginning stages, or those beginning stages rather. My wife began to supply me with underclothes. I had no decent wearings. She began to change my wearings. Old clothes I had, she gave me new jeans and new shirts and began to make me look nice. I'll show you some pictures of how I looked, I appeared, prior to my wife meeting me. Even belts for my pants I didn't have. I had an old one, and Deborah made sure in those days we were just friends in the church. Yeah, we liked each other, but there was nothing romantic in our relationship. But she saw this young man that befriended her, and she just cared about him and saw that he was inadequate. He needed some makeover. He needed some upgrading, and my wife hesitantly did that. We had all kinds of hardships after that. Somebody went and squandered her resources for her boutique, so she lost the boutique, and we began to struggle. We had war in the country at the time after our marriage, and it was so devastating that we had to leave the country, and we went to another country, and we stayed there until my wife had the opportunity to come to the United States of America. And being her husband, I was eligible as well, beneath her auspices, to come to this country. So we arrived here, and my life began to drastically change. Digressing back a little, when my wife met me, I was a sickly young man. I was born sick. For those of you that know the story, I stayed almost 12 months in my mother's womb, and predicated on that, I was born with all kinds of medical complications that virtually took my life. So I was sick all through, even when my wife met me, and I had no zeal of life. I didn't want to do anything in life, not to pursue education, not to pursue any goals or aspirations. I didn't have any, because I thought that I would have died. The doctor said I had an enlarged heart, that I was not going to even make 18 years of age, and I've been having all kinds of heart issues since those early years. So I didn't have any zeal. I thought I would have died. But my wife, this woman of godly credits, decided to motivate me and told me that, look, the doctor said you would have died even from the womb, and when you were a toddler, and now in your teens, and you still survive. Now you're 24 and you're still here. I want to let you know, Victor, that you're not going to die, but you will live. God has you here for so many reasons, to be a blessing to so many people. and those purposes will have to come to pass before he can take you out of here. I doubted my wife at the time, my friend. And I said, she doesn't even know what she's talking about. She doesn't know how I feel, what I go through, how I live daily. My wife doesn't know. I mean, Deborah doesn't know. But she was staunched. She was very convicted that I was going to live. And I doubted it. And I went 25 and 25 and 26 and 26 and 27 and 27 and 28 and on and on and on. So when we came here, she encouraged me to pursue education. She said, Victor, you have to do that. You're not dying, so it's not going to be unworthy, or it's not going to be immaterial if you went to just pursue it. If God takes you, fine. But what if God doesn't take you? What if your life doesn't be taken away from you? Then you will be here, without anything. So we've been here for 22 years now. That was in the earliest part of our being here. So she encouraged me, and I began to pursue educational heights, and I became successful in those areas. And my wife continued to help me. When they say a helpmeet, she is, she was, she has always been, and will continue to be. So, like I said, I'm not going to say much, but Deborah, I'm just trying to lift you up in the eyes of people, as I've always done over the years with every, area we've lived and people we've encountered. These new friends of ours in our lives here in Texas, I'm just trying to share with them how far we've come. It's been rocky roads, not because of her, but because of me, that I'm not going to go into. But my wife stood by me, and she has supported me. She has scolded me, reprimanded me. She has chastised me, but she has not left me. And she continues to care about me and look after me, as I've tried to be a kind of husband that will care for my wife with authenticity, veracity, sincerity. I care about Dee so much till I always told people, if my wife needed a heart transplant, I would be on the table if my heart would be compatible in whatever organ, without thinking about it, deciding it. Deborah, I love you. And words are inadequate to express this love, and that's why I have always tried to express it in kind, not just verbally, but in kind. And I will continue to express my love through those various aspects that I've been engaged all these years. When you got sick, it killed me that day. I died that day. Had you died, God forbid, that day, I would not have wanted to live, because my life on this earth constitutes you. Everything I ever would want to enjoy, I want to be, I want to have, I want to have it with you. You're the only one that deserves me and everything that God has blessed me and us with. I love our children, but everybody knows that my love for you surpasses all of that, of our children. I care about them in different ways and love them in different ways, but my love in this world is rested on you. And thank God that I feel this way, because I don't know how to feel any other way. And I've been hurt since you had this stroke. My wife and I were vacationing. I came and got her on one of my trips, and we went and traveled so several states. So this time we were coming back home after 3 months of vacationing, coming back home, driving through the desert of Wyoming, going on to Salt Lake City, Utah. We had just parked and had dinner. She fixed food and we ate, and then we got back on the road. And while driving, one of our friends, we were in Minnesota. We travel all that, those regions, but from Minnesota, we have a friend there, and we had some business with her. So whilst driving through through the desert of Wyoming, this friend of ours called, and she said, can I speak with Debbie? And I said, oh yeah, yes, you on speakerphone, speak with her. And they begin to talk. So the lady began to ask my wife some questions, and then Debbie just began to murmur, but like but. And then the lady says, Debbie, are you there? I can't hear you. I'm not understanding you. So I told Dave, I said, Dee, what are you doing? I said, stop. She's asking your question. Just answer her. And Debbie looks like she's like this. And then she began to motion to her head, knocking her head. They're showing me something, telling me something. All this time, I'm thinking that she's just goofing, playing. Oh, folks, that dreadful day always flashes through my mind. My wife was dying right before me. I didn't know. So when she began to throw out, she began to vomit. That's when I took it serious. I said, oh no, this is something that's happening. I said, Deb, can you understanding me? And then she kept going, words. I had no prior knowledge of what stroke is. None whatsoever. I've never had anybody around me that have ever had stroke. So I didn't know what was going on with my baby. So I managed to put her down, and I sat down and put her, I took her to the back for her to lie down. And she was in so much pain and banging her head. It's like her head. So not knowing the blood vessel in my baby's brain had bursted. She had a stroke, and I didn't know. So the first impulse I had was to just park, so we can be driving in the bumps and she having these kind of problems. So I said, no, but if I park, I don't know what's going on with her, because if had it been just normal headaches, then I would understand. I'm sorry for being so fast. I hope you guys are understanding what I'm saying. But she's not talking, and she's vomiting. So I'll continue to drive, and I was 6 hours away from Salt Lake City, driving in the Wyoming desert, almost 3.5 to 4 hours drive, nothing but desert, dry land, no buildings, no homes, no towns. And I kept that thought that made me to keep driving was the Holy Spirit, was God. Was God, maybe just to continue driving and not stop, because ordinarily I would stop. If my wife is feeling uncomfortable, I would stop, we take a hotel and we get some rest and continue the next day. But no, I just kept driving. I kept driving just so I can find a town and call 911 for the ambulance to come and take her to the hospital and see what's going on with her. And I kept driving all those hours, and my baby was back there and just vomiting and trying to say some words, and the words couldn't come out. So finally we got to Salt Lake City. As soon as I entered the city, the first rest area, I parked there, and I called 911, and I explained to them what was happening instantaneously. The people knew what was happening to my wife, but they didn't tell me what was going on. And they said, sir, we are right down the road. God made me to come right to where the hospital, one of the greatest hospitals that specializes in stroke, was exactly 5 minutes from where I parked. And those people, while I was on the phone, I heard the siren, and those people were coming. The ambulance were coming already while I was on the phone with the 911. Oh, Dee. Oh, my baby, I'm so sorry. They came right away to us, and it took her. And it said, sir, you can come later on, but we have to take her now. And it took her. So I got myself settled down, and I followed after about maybe 6-7 minutes, and I went to the hospital. When I got there, they had already done the test. The doctor came to me. He said, sir, I'm sorry, but your wife just suffered a massive stroke. He showed me on the tablet my wife's brain and the spot on the left side of her brain that controls our cognition and our memory and our speech patterns. The round dot was there indicating the blood vessel had bursted. He said, but it was good you brought her here on time. He said there's a window for paralysis for the patient to get paralyzed, because after the blood burst in the brain, when you have the hemorrhagic stroke, then the blood will soak. If you don't get the patient to the hospital within a certain amount of time, which is between 6 to 10 hours, for them to stop the bleeding, the blood will soak in the brain, and then the patient will become paralyzed on that side of the brain, all the left side, and possibly would die. I'm sitting there listening to this kind of story, this news. What? Stroke? I've heard of stroke and how it incapacitates people and it makes them to be paralyzed and stuff like that. But I never knew the symptoms and signs of it. And then to know that this happened to my wife and she's lying down, and I'm thinking that, oh God, this can't happen. This can be this good woman. This woman who is so loving and kind and humble and loyal to everyone around her. A very, like I said, the most I don't know what word to use. I've never met anybody like Dee in this life. No. And why would something like this happen to her? I began to get so confused. The doctor told me, said, sir, don't cry. Compose yourself. She's in good hands. Our hospital, we specialize in stroke, and right now she's stable. The bleeding has stopped, and we have a technology where we can, drain all that stuff, the blood, but that's how my wife suffered that stroke, and she lost her memory, her speech. Thank God she didn't get paralyzed. It's almost 3, going on 4 years now, and we've been struggling with her. You see her today, she's a miracle. She all the memories that she lost and all of the things that she began to come back, and the doctors, her neurologist said that some of the cells that got damaged, they cannot be replenished, they cannot regroup or be regenerated. Yeah. So things that she lost, memories she lost, they're all going to be gone, those cells that got damaged. But I'm thanking the Lord and thanking his instruments that he used, these doctors and technology, that they were able to stop and restore my wife and maintain the sanity that she has, to stop the other cells from being damaged. Otherwise, my wife would have become nothing. Today she can talk, she can remember some things. Though she's impacted, when you're speaking to her, you got to speak slowly because her brain takes some time to process what she's saying, so she won't hear well. Even when we're watching TV, movies, I have to pause and explain to her what the person said. And I would say, did you understand that? She said, no, I don't understand what it's saying, and I would take my time. So all that, it was so bad and worse. Now today, she can communicate, though she still have no slur. going on and she got to think about words to use. My baby is still alive. She's still here. And I'm trusting God for all of the prayers for everyone that she will continue to live. And she will continue to live and fulfill the days that God has here for her. Dee, I'm going to always be here for you. I love you with all my heart. And all these years, I changed my area of career just to come home and be with you and not leave you one more minute. And I'll be here to protect you and to care for you, provide for you, and do whatever that's necessary. I love you, and I'm sorry this thing happened to you. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. You're a strong woman. You're a very strong, courageous, energetic, God-fearing woman. And God has kept you here. You will preach His word again. Those things that the enemy thought he took from you will all be restored. You couldn't talk. You couldn't remember anything. Now see where you are. These are all indications, all signs that you will continue to be well. Your life is not ended, as you always think and say. It's not over. By God's grace, you will be able to drive again. You will be able to go back and continue your career. Whatever that you need to do, you will do it. It's just taking some time for your healing to be perfected. And God, through the instrumentality of these doctors,